No one screamed when the Dragon Empress landed. They couldn't. The air itself felt too heavy. Parents stopped mid-sentence. Children froze halfway down slides. Even the wind seemed to hesitate as enormous crimson wings folded behind a towering figure crowned in living flame. She did not come with an army. That was what terrified them most. Behind her, small, quiet, almost fragile in comparison, walked the heir to the Draconess throne. Princess Kaylis. 7 years old. 7 years silent. No cry at birth. No first word. No whisper in the dark. The Empire had waited for a prophecy. What they received was silence. Healers from molten temples had pressed glowing palms to her throat. Ancient flame seers had read the patterns of her scales. War priests had insisted the silence meant dormant power, that one day her voice would ignite continents. But days turned into years. And the princess never spoke. Not once. The Empress had commanded fleets into collapsing star systems. She had shattered rebellions with a single roar. But she could not command her daughter to speak. Today, she did something unthinkable. She came to Earth. No ceremony. No diplomatic envoy. No throne. Just a mother walking into a human playground. Colorful metal frames stood in sharp contrast to dragonstone citadels. Bright plastic slides gleamed under sunlight instead of volcanic glow. Children ran without fear of claws or flame. Kaylis watched them. Her golden eyes tracked laughter like it was a language she almost understood. A small human boy tripped. He cried. His father scooped him up instantly. "It's okay," the man whispered, brushing dust from his son's knees. The boy stopped crying within seconds. The Empress felt something tighten in her chest. Kaylis took one hesitant step toward the swings. Royal Guard stiffened. The Empress raised a claw. "Stand down." Her voice rolled like distant thunder, but quiet. Controlled. She knelt before her daughter. "You may play," she said softly in the ancient draconic tongue. Kaylis looked at her. Silent. Always silent. The Empress felt that familiar fracture beneath her armor. Ruler of 1,000 worlds. Powerless before one child. Then, a human father approached. No armor. No weapon. No kneeling. He simply held his daughter's hand and offered a warm, ordinary smile. "Hey there," he said gently. The guards shifted immediately. But the Empress did not move. The human crouched down so he was eye level with Princess Kaylis. Not looking up at the Empress. Not looking intimidated. Just looking at the child. "My daughter wants to race someone down the slide," he said. "Think you can beat her?" Kaylis blinked. For the first time since arriving. She leaned slightly forward. The Empress felt her pulse quicken. The human didn't bow. He didn't praise her title. He didn't mention the Empire. He treated her daughter like a child. And something in Princess Kaylis's eyes flickered. The Empress froze. Because for the first time in 7 years, her daughter looked curious. The royal guards did not like this. 4 armored dragons stood at the edge of the playground, talons resting near plasmalance spears. Their wings twitched with restrained instinct. A human male had approached the air. Without permission. Without kneeling. Without fear. The Empress felt their tension like static in the air. "Stand down," she said quietly. The words were calm, but absolute. The guards obeyed. The human father either didn't notice, or chose not to. He crouched fully now, bringing himself to Princess Kaylis's height. His daughter stood beside him, gripping a bright red toy shovel. Up close, Kaylis seemed even smaller. Her scales shimmered faintly in the sunlight, less intimidating than regal. Her wings were not yet large enough to cast shadows like her mother's. Her golden eyes reflected everything, but revealed nothing. The human smiled. "I'm Daniel," he said simply. "This is Emma." Emma waved enthusiastically. "Hi. Want to race?" Kaylis didn't respond. She never did. Daniel didn't look disappointed. Didn't look awkward. He just nodded slowly, as if silence was a perfectly reasonable answer. "Slides are better with competition," he continued casually. "But no pressure." No pressure. The Empress felt that phrase hit her harder than any blade. For 7 years, everything had been pressure. Expectations from the High Council. Prophecies whispered through corridors. Scholars debating destiny. Kaylis had been surrounded by reverence and fear. Never normal. Emma stepped closer. "You don't have to talk," the little girl said matter-of-factly. "Sometimes I don't talk when I'm mad either." Daniel chuckled softly. "That's true." Kaylis blinked again. Then, she looked at Emma's hand. Emma extended it. Not formally. Not cautiously. Just a simple invitation. Come on. The Empress felt her breath catch. Kaylee's hesitated. The entire playground seemed to hold still. Humans watched from a distance, unsure whether to intervene or film or run. The Empress said nothing. She could command armies. But this moment could not be commanded. Slowly, Princess Kaylee's lifted her small clawed hand and placed it into Emma's. A collective exhale rippled through the space. The guards stiffened further, unsure whether to step in. The Empress stopped them with a glance. Emma grinned. Raced to the big slide. And she pulled Kaylee's gently toward the playground structure. Kaylee stumbled slightly at first, unaccustomed to being led by someone her own size. But she didn't pull away. Daniel stood up slowly, brushing dust from his jeans. He didn't look proud. He didn't look impressed. He simply walked toward the slide, keeping a comfortable distance. The Empress followed more slowly. Every step felt like walking across thin ice. At the base of the towering metal slide, Emma climbed confidently. Kaylee stopped at the ladder. She looked back at her mother. That look? It wasn't fear. It wasn't confusion. It was uncertainty. The Empress lowered herself slightly. You are safe, she said in their ancient tongue. Kaylee studied her mother's face. Then looked back at Emma, already halfway up, laughing. Daniel rested one hand casually on the slide support beam. Take your time, he said gently. No rush. No ceremony. Just patience. Kaylee's reached for the ladder. Her claws touched cool metal. She flinched slightly. It was different from dragonstone. Different from volcanic steel. Different from everything she knew. Emma called from above, you can do it. The Empress felt her pulse pounding now. 7 years of silence. 7 years of watching her daughter remain distant from the world. And now, she was climbing. Not because she was commanded. Not because she was tested. But because another child invited her. Halfway up, Kaylee's paused. Daniel stepped closer to the bottom of the slide. He didn't raise his arms yet. He just positioned himself where she would land. Just in case. The Empress noticed. He wasn't trying to prove anything. He wasn't trying to impress royalty. He was simply prepared to catch her. Emma reached the top and shouted, 3, 2. She paused. And looked at Kaylee's. Do you want to count? Silence. The Empress felt her heart stop. Emma shrugged cheerfully. Okay. I'll count this time. 3. Kaylee's reached the top platform. 2. The wind shifted. 1. Emma disappeared down the slide in a burst of laughter. Kaylee stood alone at the top. The entire universe seemed to narrow into that small metal platform. Daniel looked up. He didn't shout encouragement. He didn't pressure. He simply said, I'm right here. And for the first time, Princess Kaylee's did not look at her mother. She looked at him. And stepped forward. Princess Kaylee stood at the top of the slide. The world felt impossibly far below. Wind brushed against her small wings. Sunlight caught along the faint ridges of her scales. For a brief second, she swayed, uncertain. 7 years of silence pressed against that moment. The Empress did not move. She wanted to spread her wings. To fly up. To guard. To control. But control had never worked before. Below, Daniel waited. Not tense. Not dramatic. Just steady. I've got you, he said softly. 3 simple words. No prophecy. No ritual incantation. Just assurance. Kaylee stepped forward. The slide carried her down faster than she expected. Her claws scraped lightly along the metal edges, wings flaring instinctively. Her golden eyes widened, not in fear, but surprise. The Empress felt her heart surge into her throat. Kaylee's reached the bottom. And lost balance. In the same motion, Daniel caught her. Not as one catches royalty. Not with reverence. But like a father catching any child who might fall. Secure. Gentle. Unhurried. Kaylee's froze in his arms. Daniel crouched slightly so she could regain footing. He did not release her immediately. He waited until she was steady. You did it, he said, smiling. Emma ran around the slide, breathless with excitement. That was awesome. You went super fast. Kaylee's blinked. Her claws rested lightly against Daniel's shirt. He didn't seem to notice that those claws could pierce steel. He didn't flinch at the faint warmth radiating from her skin. He simply let her stand there. Safe. The Empress watched closely. There was something different in Kaylee's eyes. Not confusion. Not distance. Focus. Daniel tilted his head slightly. Want to go again? The question hung there. No demand. No expectation. Just possibility. Kaylee's opened her mouth. Nothing came out. The Empress felt the old, crushing disappointment creep in. She had seen that motion 1,000 times. The silent shaping of sound that never arrived. Emma tugged Daniel's sleeve. Daddy, maybe she doesn't like slides. That's okay, Daniel replied calmly. We can try swings. Or sandcastles. Or nothing. Or nothing. The Empress felt something shift inside her. In the Dragon Empire, nothing was unacceptable. Silence meant weakness. Hesitation meant vulnerability. But here, nothing was allowed. Kaylee was still looking at Daniel. Her small chest rose and fell. Daniel smiled gently. No rush. That's when it happened. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a tremor of air. Her throat tightened. Her lips parted again. A fragile vibration formed, barely stronger than wind brushing leaves. The Empress stepped forward without realizing it. Guards stiffened. The playground went silent. Daniel didn't move. He didn't react. He didn't interrupt. He simply waited. And from somewhere deep inside Princess Kaylee's, a sound tried to exist. It broke halfway. A whisper that almost wasn't. Daniel leaned slightly closer, not invading space, just close enough to hear. It's okay, he murmured. You can take your time. Kaylee's golden eyes locked onto his. And then, clearer. Small. Unsteady. Again. The word escaped like something that had been locked away for years. Emma gasped loudly. The Empress froze completely. Even the guards forgot to breathe. Daniel blinked. For a moment, he genuinely looked confused. Then his expression softened into something simple and warm. You want to go again? He asked. Kaylee nodded. Tiny. Certain. Again. This time stronger. The Empress felt her knees weaken. 7 years of silence. Broken by a playground slide. Not flame. Not magic. Not imperial force. Just patience. Daniel stepped aside and gestured toward the ladder. All right, champ, he said gently. Let's do it again. And Princess Kaylee smiled. It was small. But it was the first time her mother had ever seen it paired with a word. Behind them, the Dragon Empress felt tears rise, hotter than any fire she commanded. Because for the first time, her daughter's silence had cracked. And it wasn't power that broke it. It was safety. The word echoed longer than it should have. Again. It was small. Fragile. Barely louder than breath. But to the Dragon Empress, it thundered. For 7 years, her daughter's silence had filled palaces, temples, and war chambers like a ghost. Advisors spoke carefully around it. Priests interpreted it. Rivals whispered about it. The silent air. Now the silence had cracked. And it cracked because of a human playground. Kaylee climbed the ladder again, more confident this time. Emma raced her halfway up, laughing as if nothing extraordinary had happened. To Emma, nothing had. To Daniel, it seemed like something small, but good. To the Empress, it was everything. She stood motionless, wings slightly unfurled without realizing it. The guards behind her exchanged uncertain glances. One stepped closer. Your Majesty, shall we summon the High Council? Her voice came slower than usual. No. The guard hesitated. But the heir has. I said no. The Empress did not take her eyes off the slide. At the top platform, Emma counted again. 3, 2, 1. Both girls launched down together. Kaylee shrieked. Not in fear. In delight. The sound rang bright and unrestrained. The Empress felt it physically, like a blade pulled from her chest. Kaylee's landed at the bottom and laughed, breathless, uneven, real. Daniel steadied her lightly again. You're getting faster, he said. Kaylee's looked up at him. And this time, she spoke without struggling. Fast. One word. Clear. Deliberate. Daniel grinned. That's right. Fast. Emma grabbed her hand. Let's try the swings. Kaylee's turned toward her mother. For the first time in 7 years, when she looked at the Empress, it wasn't distant. It wasn't lost. It was alive. Mama. The word was soft. But unmistakable. The Empress staggered. The guards surged forward instinctively, thinking she had been attacked. She raised a trembling claw to stop them. Mama. Kaylee's repeated it, testing the shape of the word. The Empress lowered herself slowly, wings folding around her like collapsing banners. She knelt in the dirt of a human playground, crimson scales touching dust and chalk drawings. She had knelt before no one in centuries. But before her daughter. She lowered her head. "Yes," she whispered, voice breaking for the first time in living memory. "I am here." Kaylee's walked toward her. Not rushed. Not uncertain. She pressed her small forehead against the Empress's armored chest. And spoke again. "Again? Mama." The Empress closed her eyes. Around them, humans stood silently, unsure whether they were witnessing something sacred or private. Daniel gently pulled Emma back a respectful distance. No applause. No spectacle. Just space. The Empress inhaled slowly. 7 years of desperation. 7 years of searching for power. And it had not required ancient rites. It required normalcy. It required patience. It required someone who expected nothing. She looked up at Daniel. He scratched the back of his neck awkwardly. "I didn't do anything," he said quietly. The Empress studied him carefully. "That was precisely the point. You did not treat her as a throne," she replied. "You treated her as a child." Daniel shrugged slightly. "She is a child." The simplicity struck her harder than prophecy ever had. Kaylee's tugged at her mother's claw. "Swing." Another word. The Empress felt tears burn, but did not hide them this time. "Yes," she whispered. "Let us try the swing." And as the Dragon Empress, conqueror of star systems, walked beside her speaking daughter toward a simple metal swing set, she understood something that would change her empire forever. Power had never been what her daughter needed. She needed safety. And a human had shown her how. The transmission reached the Draconis High Council within the hour. No one dared edit it. No one dared summarize it. They watched the raw footage exactly as it happened. The heir of the Dragon Empire, 7 years silent, laughing on a human playground. Speaking. The chamber of obsidian and firelight remained silent long after the recording ended. Finally, an elder Flame Lord spoke. What ancient human rite was used? Another narrowed his molten eyes. What technology influenced her vocal awakening? A third muttered darkly, "We warned that humans possess subtle manipulations." The chamber doors opened. The Dragon Empress entered alone. No fanfare. No guards. No ceremony. They immediately rose. She did not sit on her throne. Instead, she remained standing at the center of the chamber. There was no ritual, she said evenly. The elders exchanged looks. No psychic harmonics. No flame resonance. No neural correction. The Empress's golden eyes hardened. No. Silence returned. Then one elder asked carefully. Then what caused the heir to speak? The Empress paused. Not for dramatic effect. But because the truth felt almost unbelievable when spoken aloud. A father. Confusion rippled through the chamber. A father? Yes. She stepped forward. He did not kneel. Several elders stiffened. He did not show fear. A few wings twitched in irritation. He did not treat her as royalty. That drew open disapproval. The Empress's voice sharpened slightly. He treated her as a child. The chamber fell still. She was not prophecy to him. Not heir. Not symbol. Not future weapon. Her gaze swept across the council. She was a little girl who wanted to race down a slide. A long silence followed. One elder spoke quietly. Surely it was coincidence. The Empress's wings unfolded slightly, controlled power radiating through the chamber. For 7 years, she said, voice steady but heavy, we surrounded her with expectation. With reverence. With fear of what her silence meant. Her claws tightened at her sides. We never allowed her to simply be small. The words hit harder than flame. Another elder shifted uncomfortably. Are you suggesting human weakness cured the heir? The Empress's eyes flashed. No. She leaned forward slightly. I am suggesting human gentleness accomplished what our strength could not. The chamber trembled, not from rage, but from realization. Outside the imperial palace, word spread quickly across the empire. The silent heir had spoken. Markets paused. Military academies replayed the footage. Scholars re-examined 7 years of failed theories. And across distant systems, a quiet truth settled. Humanity had done nothing extraordinary. That was precisely why it mattered. The next day, the Empress returned to Earth. This time without ceremony. Without armor plating across her shoulders. Without imperial markings burning along her wings. Just a mother. Kaylee's ran ahead of her, laughing, speaking in short bursts of excited words. Slide. Fast. Again. Daniel and Emma were already there. Emma waved enthusiastically. Daniel gave an easy nod. Morning, he said. Not your majesty. Not Empress. Just morning. Kaylee's ran straight toward Emma. Race. The Empress stopped a few steps behind. She watched as her daughter blended into the chaotic joy of human childhood. No throne. No prophecy. No burden. Just play. Daniel walked over and stood beside her. You don't have to thank me, he said quietly. The Empress looked at him. I do, she replied. He shook his head gently. She just needed space. The Empress looked at the children again. No, she corrected softly. She needed safety. A pause. Then she added. And someone who expected nothing from her. Daniel smiled faintly. That's kind of our thing. The Empress almost laughed. Across the stars, Dragon Fleet still commanded fear. Their empire remained powerful. Their fire remained unmatched. But something fundamental shifted that week. New policies were written. Royal heirs would train in humility before warfare. Young dragons would be allowed years of childhood before expectation. And diplomatic channels with humanity quietly deepened. Because the Dragon Empire had learned something unsettling. Humans did not conquer with power. They changed the universe with normalcy. As the sun dipped lower over the playground, Kaylee's ran back toward her mother. She grabbed the Empress's claw confidently. Mama, she said brightly. Yes? Kaylee's grinned. Again tomorrow. The Empress closed her eyes briefly. For the first time in 7 years. She did not fear the future. Again tomorrow, she agreed. And somewhere far beyond Earth's skies, the galaxy adjusted its understanding of humanity once more. Not because humans were the strongest. But because sometimes, the strongest thing in the universe is kindness without expectation.